The Whitman family reunion was already buzzing when I pulled up to the Vineyard Estate in Sonoma, 30 minutes late, intentionally. At 33, I knew better than to arrive early just to be ignored. These reunions were always about the stars of the family, my older siblings and cousins, all Ivy-educated, corporate-polished, and endlessly adored by our parents. I stepped out of my rental in a sleek navy jumpsuit, understated but sharp, and walked through the rows of parked luxury cars toward the main veranda. "Lena, finally," my father called from the balcony, his tone clipped. "Everyone's inside already." I smiled tightly and gave him a brief wave. "Got caught wrapping up a call," I said. Technically true. I'd just stepped out of a strategy meeting with the acquisition team. "You're still doing that remote work?" he asked, already half put in back toward the party. Before I could answer, Camille appeared at my side. At 36, she was the pride of the family, co-o of Whitman and Reed Investments, our grandfather's legacy firm. "Lena," she said with a smooth, practiced grin. "We were just toasting our latest merger, $40 million, 0 cents in post-tax profit." She eyed my outfit, then my shoes. "Still with that little freelance gig?" "Still managing small portfolios," I replied, knowing full well she'd scoff. Camille chuckled softly. "Well, you know we're always hiring. Analyst roles open every year. It's good experience, even if it's not glamorous." I nodded politely, but inside I nearly laughed. She had no idea. Over the last 5 years, I'd quietly built Indigo Meridian, an independent investment firm operating behind a labyrinth of shell companies. We specialized in rescuing failing companies, flipping them, and walking away with clean exits and massive ROI. And the real kicker? Last quarter, we acquired a controlling stake in Whitman and Reed. "I'm good where I am," I said simply. Camille exchanged a smug look with my father. "If you ever want something real, you know where to find us." As I followed them into the glass-walled tasting room, my phone buzzed. A message from my assistant lit the screen. "Final signatures in. Full control confirmed. Congratulations, Ms. Whitman." I tucked my phone away and smiled. Let the reunion begin. "Lena!" Uncle Grant called out from the charcuterie table as I stepped onto the sun-drenched patio. "Come here, let me get a look at you." I walked over, champagne in hand, preparing myself. "Still figuring things out, huh?" he chuckled, patting my arm. "I'm doing just fine, Uncle Grant," I said smoothly. "Fine?" he boomed. "Fine doesn't cut it in the Whitman family. Look at Camille, youngest COO in California's finance sector, and Bennett just made partner at Steele and Price. And that's what we call thriving." I smiled politely, thinking of the acquisition folder sitting in my briefcase. Indigo Meridian's newest play. Signed this morning. "Speaking of wins," Camille joined in, eyes bright. "Did you hear about our expansion strategy? We're buying out 3 boutique firms in the next quarter. Tech adjacent, very scalable. Analysts are calling us the next juggernaut." What she didn't know was that 2 of those deals had already been quietly blocked, thanks to counter bids from Indigo subsidiaries. And the third? It was days away from a merger announcement with one of our other holdings. "How exciting," I murmured. "Daddy thinks we'll cross $1 billion in revenue next year," she said proudly. "The Whitman name's about to go global." I sipped my champagne, recalling the analyst brief on my desk. Whitman and Reed's growth projections were a balloon full of hot air. Over-leveraged, inflated, and teetering on fragile optimism. Within 24 hours, reality would hit. Hard. "Lena," my mother approached, her voice tinged with regret. "Your cousin Reese was just profiled in Forbes 30 under 30. Isn't that something?" "Very impressive," I nodded, though I knew Aunt Darlene's PR team had practically ghost-written the article. "You had so much promise at BlackRock," she sighed. "Everyone thought you'd be the next star of Wall Street." I left that world 5 years ago, and not because I couldn't keep up. I simply saw through it. While they played politics and posed for press, I was quietly building Indigo Meridian. We now controlled $50 billion, 0 cents in assets, across 4 continents. Times change, Mom. Before she could respond, Camille clinked her glass loudly. I have news, she beamed. Whitman and Reed is going public next month. Initial valuation? $4 billion. Cheers erupted, Uncle Grant whooped, and Bennett started talking yacht upgrades. Camille turned to me. Faux sincere. You should invest, Lena. Might help you finally build something of your own. I thought about the team still working back at Indigo Meridian's San Francisco office. Analysts triple-checking every figure for tomorrow's release. I'll keep that in mind, I said coolly. Poor thing, I heard Aunt Darling whisper to my mother behind me. She just never found her footing, did she? My mother sighed. All those degrees, and for what? No husband, no house, no real title. I checked my phone, unsurprised to see the message waiting. Final sign-offs complete. Press release queued for 9:00 a.m. Perfect timing. Camille caught the glance. Work emergency? She asked with a smirk. One of your side gigs falling apart? Something like that, I smiled, sipping my drink. Actually, Camille, I've been curious, what's Whitman and Reed's plan for the Southeast Asia portfolio? I heard there were some concerns with the semiconductor pipeline. Her face stiffened just enough to confirm I'd hit a nerve. That's not public knowledge, she said flatly. Where did you hear that? Oh, you know how things travel in our world, I said, letting the silence hang. Especially with companies headed for an IPO. She straightened. Everything is fine. Our IPO is proceeding exactly as planned. What she didn't know was that Indigo Meridian had spent the past year acquiring majority stakes in 3 of Whitman and Reed's primary suppliers and 2 of their debt holders. We weren't just watching their IPO. We were about to own it. Of course, I said, voice velvet smooth. I'm sure it'll all go just the way it's meant to. The evening wore on. Rounds of toasts, bragging, and backhanded comments aimed at me. I let them roll past, glass in hand, expression unreadable. As the party thinned out, Camille leaned in. You know, Lena, you could still come work for us. Entry level, of course. But family looks out for family. I studied her. You're absolutely right, Camille. Family should help family. She laughed lightly, not sensing the shift in my tone. What could you possibly teach me about business? You'd be surprised, I said, checking my phone one last time. Everything was greenlit. The next morning, I sat alone in my penthouse overlooking downtown San Francisco. Presswire notifications started pouring in, and the Whitman family empire began to crumble. The San Francisco skyline gleamed in warm hues as the sun crept higher. In exactly 1 hour, the business world would wake up to a new reality. Whitman and Reed Investments was no longer under family control. Marie, my executive assistant, appeared at the door. Press releases locked and queued. All board votes confirmed. You're officially in. I adjusted the cuff of my tailored navy suit. Custom Chanel. A rare indulgence reserved for days like this. And Camille? HQ. Prepping for the IPO press conference. Scheduled for 9:30. That press conference, I said with a faint smile, won't be happening. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A message from Camille. Thought about our talk. Still time to buy in before we go public. Family perks included. I didn't respond. I opened my laptop instead. Indigo Meridian acquires controlling interest in Whitman and Reed Investments. Effective immediately, executive leadership has been reassigned by board approval. At precisely 9 p.m. clock IMM, the news dropped. Brains across my office lit up. Breaking: Whitman and Reed acquired in surprise takeover. IPO plans dismantled as Indigo Meridian takes control. Mystery powerhouse strikes again. Indigo Meridian CEO revealed. My phone detonated with alerts. 7 missed calls from Camille, 10 from Uncle Grant. Even Bennett, the cocky new law partner, was trying to reach me. At 9:15, Mary returned. They're here, all of them, downstairs. I didn't even need to ask who. Send them up. Camille burst into the office first. Her blazer askew, mascara streaked. What the hell did you do? She hissed. This is illegal. You can't do this. We're announcing our IPO today. Uncle Grant followed, face red, fists clenched. Where's the CEO of Indigo Meridian? I want to speak to them, now. Mom? Dad? I said softly. They stopped cold. You're speaking to her. Silence fell. Camille stared, her mouth opening, then closing again, speechless. Uncle Grant sank into the nearest chair, stunned. My mother clutched her pearls, eyes wide. Tates? Impossible, Camille whispered. I stood slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle. Is it? I said. Indigo Meridian, founded 5 years ago, now manages over $50 billion, 0 cents in global assets. I looked at them, calm and composed. And, as of this morning, it manages your legacy too. Known for executing strategic takeovers of inflated investment firms, I said, pacing slowly behind my desk. Ring any bells? You're? Bennett finally choked out, eyes wide. You're her. The one they call the ghost CEO. The phantom of finance. The very same, I confirmed, reaching for the leather folder beside me. Camille? I offered, extending it. Want to see the real numbers? Not the polished fiction you've been feeding investors? She snatched the folder with trembling fingers, flipping through pages dense with audited data and internal communications, her face drained of color. These are internal reports. These are confidential. How did... Your semiconductor play in Vietnam is collapsing, I said calmly. Your revenue forecasts for Asia were fabricated by a contractor you failed to vet. 3 of your VPs began offloading stock last quarter. Quietly. Camille opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. Should I continue? Uncle Grant finally found his voice. Now listen here, young lady. No, I said, sharp but cool. You listen. You built this illusion of the indestructible Whitman legacy, but it was just that, an illusion. I tapped a button on my desk. The wall of screens behind me flickered to life, cascading with graphs, audits, market data, all exposing the truth. The company's real valuation is under $1.8 billion, 0 cents. Your inflated IPO number was a fantasy kept alive by wishful thinking and media spin. And now, that IPO is dead. Camille collapsed into a chair, her posture unraveling with her pride. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this? To us. I gave a quiet laugh. To us? This is the family that laughed when I left BlackRock, that offered me internships while I was building a global empire. We were trying to help, my mother said weakly. No. You were trying to box me in, mold me into someone safe and small. I stepped forward, locking eyes with them. But success isn't about fitting into your world, it's about creating mine. Uncle Grant narrowed his eyes. So this is revenge? This is business, I said. Indigo Meridian acquires underleveraged, overhyped firms and turns them into something real. That your firm happens to share my last name? That's just irony. Bennett straightened his tie. The board won't allow it. They already did, I replied evenly. Check your phones, I said calmly. Right on cue. A chorus of vibrations filled the room as their devices lit up with breaking news. Financial alerts. Market analysts. Live stock trackers. Whitman and Reed Investments was tanking. Fast. Camille looked up, her mascara smeared and eyes wide with disbelief. You've destroyed everything? No, I said, firm but even. I've saved you from yourselves. Indigo Meridian specializes in turning around over-leveraged, legacy-bound firms like yours. In 6 months, Whitman and Reed will be stronger than it's been in a decade. Just not under Whitman leadership. And what happens to us? My mother asked, voice low and uncertain. I pressed another button. The screens shifted again, this time showing contracts, valuations, transition plans. You will all receive fair market compensation for your shares. Current executives will be offered generous severance. Then I gave the smallest smile. And if anyone's looking to rebuild from the ground up, I might have a few entry-level openings, just a foot in the door. The silence that followed was suffocating. Camille stood abruptly, smoothing her wrinkled blouse and pushing past Bennett. "You won't get away with this." I leaned back into my chair. "I already have." They trickled out one by one, Bennett already dialing his firm, Uncle Grant guiding a hollow-eyed Camille toward the elevator. My mother lingered at the doorway. "All this time," she murmured, "you were building this empire?" I nodded. "While you were busy being embarrassed by my so-called consulting work." She looked down, defeated. "I don't even know who you are anymore." "No," I said softly, "you never did." After they were gone, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city below buzzed with energy, just like my company now did with purpose. Marie stepped in with fresh coffee. "Security badges deactivated. Transition teams are already moving into Whitman and Reed HQ. "In the press?" I asked. "Half the financial world wants to know who the phantom CEO is. Some already suspect the family connection." I smiled. "Let them wonder. My work will speak louder than any press release." My phone buzzed again, a final message from Camille. "I hope you're happy. You've torn this family apart." I replied simply, "No, Camille. I've just shown you what real success looks like." Over the following months, Indigo Meridian rebuilt everything they'd nearly destroyed. The stock price, after its initial drop, began to recover, then rise, fueled not by hype or last names, but by actual performance and transparency. And calling me down. I kept my word about the job offers. Bennett now works in Indigo Meridian's legal department. Entry level, of course. But he's learning fast. Camille declined hers, still too proud. But Uncle Grant surprised everyone by accepting a role as a senior advisor. Turns out, once you strip away the ego, the man actually understands legacy systems and infrastructure. He's useful when he isn't trying to turn every meeting into a monologue. The next Whitman family reunion was held at the usual place, Aunt Darlene's vineyard estate in Napa. But the guest list was shorter. The champagne still flowed, but the conversations were softer, less bragging, more reflection. And me? I sat where I always did, quiet, observant, glass in hand. "Lena." Camille approached near the end of the night. Her heels were lower this time. So was her tone. "I've been thinking about what you said, about what real success means." She hesitated. "That position you mentioned, is it still open?" I studied her for a moment. "Come by the office on Monday," I said. "We'll talk." Driving home through the hills that night, I thought about how the Whitmans had always defined success: press coverage, tailored suits, and hollow pride. But I'd learned success could be quieter, found in stability, integrity, creation, even if no one cheered your name. The next morning, I arrived at Indigo Meridian early. The firm's logo shimmered on the glass facade above me. 40 floors below, the old Whitman and Reed name was being taken down. Marie handed me coffee. "Board meeting at 10. Next acquisition on the agenda." I smiled. Perfect timing. Let's redefine success again. If you've ever been the quiet one in the room, the one overlooked, doubted, or dismissed, you know exactly how my story feels. I didn't speak louder to prove my worth. I built something that spoke for me. So if you've ever had to rise in silence, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Tell me when you stopped explaining yourself and started building. Tell me what success looks like to you. And here's my advice. Don't wait for the world to recognize your value. Don't let family, friends, or titles define your ceiling. Sometimes the greatest moves are made without announcement, until the results make the noise for you. Oh, and if you've made it this far, you're clearly not here for surface-level stories. You're one of us, the builders, the quiet architects of something bigger. So stay close. I don't do motivational fluff. I share blueprints, because next time they doubt you, I want you to be ready. With strategy, with clarity, with receipts. Subscribe if you're tired of the noise and ready to win smart, silent, and strong. Success isn't loud, but it's unforgettable when done right.